that summit, global leaders of 196 countries will gather together, and they will be discussing climate change and, of course, ways to avert more problems, of course, and they will try to agree on action to limit climate change. And this summit is seen as crucial because countries will be they will have ambitious targets set for them to reduce greenhouse emissions, for example, things such as net zero by 2050. So indeed, plenty of expectations are on that summit in November in Glasgow, and this report is one of those reports timed to coincide with that summit.
Well, thank you so much, Julia Lyubova, joining us there in Geneva. Well, scientists have long warned of the effects of climate change, extreme weather events being one such warning. And we have seen quite a few in recent months, most of them resulting in natural disasters. In late June, Western Canada was caught under a record heat wave. Temperatures hit an all-time high several times, capping at 49.6 degrees Celsius in the village of Lytton in British Columbia. Abnormally dry and hot weather conditions have fueled massive wildfires in western United States, Greece and Turkey. Extreme rainfall in mid-July led to devastating floods in Western Europe, killing over 200 people in Germany and Belgium. Unprecedented downpours also hit central China, dumping a year's worth of rain in just 3 days on the city of Zhengzhou. Over 300 people died. Well, extreme weather events like droughts and floods have also been hitting Africa. Here in Kenya, drought has hit 10 counties, and this has forced pastoralists to trek longer distances in search of water. CGTN's Astatal has more.
Nasawa Lomgoi is a pastoralist from Kenya's Isiolo County. Worsening drought conditions have meant she has to travel farther to fetch water. Currently, she has to travel 30 kilometers every 2 days with her livestock.
The drought has really affected us. We have a problem accessing water. Right now, we do not have any hopes of rain. We do not know how the animals are going to survive in the near future.
The government, in partnership with the Food and Agricultural Organization, is looking to tackle the issue. The Ministry of Devolution is set to sign the Anticipatory Action and Response Plan for pastoral and agro-pastoral communities. 8 Kenyan counties are set to benefit from this initiative.
So far, the government, together with FAO, are providing the support in terms of some cash transfers. We are also working on some of the intervention through vaccinations and deworming activities to protect the livelihoods of the individuals in the communities.
This comes as Ambrose Negatich says the extent of this year's drought conditions have been exceptional. Kenya's National Drought Management Authority estimates drought conditions in 10 counties could worsen from August to December. Astatal, CGTN.
Well, let's take a look now at some of these extreme weather events we are seeing taking place around the world. In California, wildfires continue to rage. The Dixie Fire has burned nearly 1,900 square kilometers in the western U.S. state and destroyed more than 400 residential and commercial buildings. Firefighters are struggling with dry conditions. Further north, Canada is also battling wildfires. Edith Tianzin has more.
The largest wildfire currently raging in the United States is expanding. Containment of the Dixie Fire in Northern California has dropped from 35% to only about 21%. 4 firefighters were injured when a tree branch fell on them during their night shift. They're reported in stable condition. Greenville, a town of about 1,000 people, was wiped out. It looks like a bomb went off. There's nothing left, said one of the residents. Authorities are assessing the damage in the area. Some residents are still unaccounted for. The Dixie Fire has so far destroyed at least 400 structures and continues to trigger more evacuations. A federal judge last Friday gave Pacific Gas and Electric, California's largest power company, 1 week to explain its role in potentially starting 2 fires that eventually merged. The utility said last month that a fuse blown from its power lines may have started the Dixie fire. This comes after the company's equipment was found responsible for the 2018 Camp Fire, which killed 85 people and destroyed the town of Paradise. Across the border, Canada is also facing catastrophic fires. Nearly 30,000 square kilometers of Canadian wildlands have burnt this year, more than twice the 20-year average for this time of the year. And it's more than twice the area that has burnt in the United States so far this year. Environmentalists have long warned about Canada's increasingly drier forests posing a high risk for fires, but most did not anticipate a fire season this explosive, starting from British Columbia and the Yukon in the west, all the way to Manitoba and Ontario in the east. Aside from ravaged towns and unhealthy air quality, the fires have long-term implications on the environment, as many of these forests used to have a high capacity to capture greenhouse gases and provide breeding grounds for migratory birds. It is Tianshan, CGTN, Los Angeles.
Well, Greece is also experiencing devastating wildfires. While the capital Athens is out of danger, strong winds continue to spread fires on the large central island of Evia. Towns and villages have been evacuated. Evangelos Pisas tells us more.
The fires here north of Athens are now under control, allowing authorities and volunteers to set up mobile centers for people to get basic necessities such as water, food, and clothes. But in Evia, Greece's second largest island, the fires continue to rampage, threatening homes and triggering more evacuations. 3 main wildfires continue to burn across the country, with the one on Evia threatening whole towns. It has forced hundreds of residents to flee on ferries after the blaze cut off all means of escape. The destruction is imminent, with the entire north part of the island now almost completely destroyed. Villages and towns continue to be evacuated as the fire front rages from the west coast to the east. Many fleeing the apocalyptic scene cannot hold their anger back, accusing authorities of not acting fast enough.
The disaster, you can see it, right? It's huge. Our villages are destroyed. There is nothing left from our homes, our properties, nothing. And we were all alone. 3 days now, we're all alone. Nobody helped, no one. People need help. They lost their homes, they lost their jobs. They need help. The government has huge responsibilities. All the governments.
As fires north of Athens come under control, the Greek capital is facing a health hazard. With choking smoke sitting across the city, authorities have told people to avoid unnecessary travel, keep windows shut, and to wear masks. A hotline has been set up for people with breathing problems. Greece is now receiving help from several European countries, but Deputy Civil Protection Minister Nikos Kardalias says the situation remains extremely difficult.
In a titanic effort through the night and during today, people fighting on several fronts have managed to contain the fire in Attica. We are continuing to fight the big battles on Evia, in Ilia and in other areas.
In the last 24 hours, the fire brigade had some success tackling 60 wildfires. But this is far from over, as the latest scenes from the island of Evia show. Evangelos Ipsas for CGTN, Athens, Greece.
Meanwhile, thousands of people have been evacuated from their homes in southwest China due to heavy rain and flooding. Half a dozen cities in Sichuan province have experienced flash floods over the past 2 days. Dazhou County was one of the worst hit areas. Rescue teams are working to help those who are trapped. Weather authorities say more rain is expected over the coming days. Well, let's bring this climate change conversation back to Africa. And for that, I'm joined via Zoom by Hyacinth Namchi, a researcher at the Geomar Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research, which is based in Kiel, Germany. He is one of the contributing authors to that UN report on climate change. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Hyacinth. The researchers, as we know, were drawn from all corners of the world to compile this groundbreaking report from the UN. Just tell us about the scientific evidence that emerged from Africa about the effects of climate change.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me. Yes, I have to say, first of all, that we have always known that the climate is changing, the globe is getting warmer. But what we have found this time around is that the rate at which this is happening is very, very fast. It is very, very widespread over different parts of the world, and it's happening very, very rapidly these days. So for Africa, evidence over the past few decades shows that everywhere in Africa is getting so much more warmer than before. And this can be explained by human activities that has to do with the emission of greenhouse gases. So in terms of heavy rainfall, so we also see heavy rainfall increasing over parts of Africa, like eastern part of South Africa and parts of West Africa. Then over a large part of Africa, it is not possible to draw any strong scientific judgment because we don't have enough data over large parts of Africa or enough studies, because we have done this based on existing literature over the past 10 years or so. Mm-hmm. So in many parts of Africa, there's not enough literature, enough previous studies for us to rely on to do reliable assessment. Then in terms of drought in terms of agricultural drought, not having enough water to support agriculture, or ecological drought, I mean not having enough water to support the plants or the animals or the organisms that ecologically are supposed to be in specific zones. We also found out that this is increasing over most parts of Africa, from Southern Africa through Western Africa to the northern parts of Africa. So overall, there's very strong, and this time around, we have used more recent methodologies, improved data sets, and improved models to study what has been happening over the past few years.
And Hyacinth, of course, we know that, as you mentioned, the report shows us the effects that climate change is having in Africa, many of them being felt, as you say, in every corner of the continent. But what about the projections coming out of that report? What does the future hold for Africa?
Yeah, so that is the point. So the future suggests that things are going to continue the way they are and will in fact get stronger and more intense. So what this means is that for the most of Africa, we are going to have even more warming, so more intense heat waves over virtually every part of Africa going forward. Then in terms of heavy rainfall, we are also going to expect like very heavy rainfall that will lead to flooding going forward into the future. So things are going to intensify, get worse. In terms of drought also, so this is the point. So you have both increased drought, and at the same time you have increased intense rainfall and flooding. So that's like extreme events. So these things going forward are really going to get so much more serious for Africa and for most parts of Africa, for that matter.
A very worrying scenario indeed. Thank you so much for your time. Hyacinth Namchi joining us there via Zoom. You are watching Africa Live. Time now for a short break. Still ahead, the Taliban sees 6 provincial capitals in 3 days as the government vows to retake key installations. And China and Russia begin joint military drills. Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climate and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories. Let's have a look. We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo, Juba, Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice. The Ethiopian government has said that Sudan lacks credibility with the country to mediate the ongoing conflict in Tigray. The comments come as Sudan recalled its ambassador to Ethiopia over the weekend. This is the latest move in a standoff between the two nations. According to the UN Refugee Agency, some 60,000 refugees have poured into Sudan since late 2020, when fighting began in Ethiopia's Tigray region. Ethiopia, through the office of the Prime Minister, says that trust has already been broken with some Sudanese leaders. Consequently, the relationship between the two nations has since been compromised.
I think the relationship with Sudan at this point is a little bit tricky because the level of trust with some leaders has already been eroded, particularly with the Sudanese army incursion into Ethiopian territory. And trust is the basis of any negotiation and any mediation as well. So that element needs to be thoroughly addressed before Sudan could be entertained as a credible party in terms of facilitating such kind of negotiations.
Rwandan and Mozambican troops deployed to Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province are reporting that they've recaptured control of the insurgent stronghold of Mocimboa de Praia. Security forces say the recovery of the town marks the end of the first phase of counterinsurgency operations in Mozambique. The port town has been a major stronghold for insurgents linked to Islamic State. It was from here where their first attacks were staged in 2017. Rwanda sent in 1,000 soldiers last month to fight alongside Mozambican forces. The 16-member Southern African Development Community has also deployed troops. Almost 800,000 people have been displaced in Cabo Delgado since fighting began. At least 12 soldiers have been killed in Burkina Faso, this according to several security sources. Speaking to Reuters, the 3 security sources added 7 soldiers were also missing. The attack allegedly took place on Sunday in the Boucle de Mohun region, located in the northwest of Burkina Faso. The army has yet to release an official statement regarding the assault. Authorities in northeast Nigeria have reunited a woman with her family 7 years after she was kidnapped by Boko Haram insurgents. She was one of the schoolgirls abducted in Chibok in 2014. Correspondent Philly Haza reports from Abuja.
Borno State Governor Babangana Zulum received the Chibok schoolgirl at the government house Maiduguri in the presence of her parents. Special advisor to the governor, Issa Gasal, says the freed woman, Ruth Pogu, and a man claiming to be her husband were found at a location in Bama local government area of the state. He says the development was kept secret while officials reached out to her parents and the Association of Parents of the Missing Schoolgirls in order to verify her identity. According to the governor, reuniting Ruth with her family is a boost to keeping alive the hopes of parents whose daughters are still missing. More than 270 girls were abducted in Chibok, Borno State in 2014. Over 100 of them have since been freed or managed to escape. The governor commiserated with families of the remaining missing schoolgirls and urged them to remain optimistic, prayerful and cooperative with security agencies where necessary. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
In international news, fierce battles continue between Afghan forces and Taliban fighters as the group captured 6 provincial capitals in just 3 days. Dozens of people have been killed and hundreds wounded as fighting escalates across the country. In the northern city of Kunduz, Afghan commandos launched a counterattack on Monday, trying to beat back Taliban advances there. U.S. airstrikes also continued, even as a Taliban spokesperson warned against further foreign intervention. The Taliban have so far rejected calls for a ceasefire. Sultan Faizi reports from Kabul.
Today early morning I heard that Taliban attacked northern province of Baghlan as well, and they claimed that they have overrun a military base there in Baghlan, and the fighting is still going on. So the reality on the ground is quite harsh and raising a lot of questions among people. Here in Kabul, a lot of people who internally displaced recently from northern region, they are questioning the the ability or the capability of the government, because nothing actually has been done on the ground, and people are desperate, people are leaving their houses, people are suffering casualties, not only by the Taliban or the government, but also the US airstrikes that have been carried out since several days in those areas that Taliban are making advances. But how effective that could be, that's a question. And also the other question is, the government has said that they have a security plan for retaking those areas that were overrun by the Taliban. How that could be effective, because no one actually could see anything from the government side so far to witness something that the government is really doing something on the ground. So this tragedy is happening, and people are desperate, and people are just hopeless for the time being.
Joint military drills between China and Russia have begun in Qingtongxie in northwest China's Ningxia Hui Autonomous Region. Zheng Yibing has more.
We're now at the People's Liberation Army's Combat Arms Tactical Training Base in Qingtongxia. A review was held here at 10 o'clock in the morning, with both militaries in 13 formations marching across the drill ground for inspection. Various types of combat aircraft flew overhead in 2 formations, and a variety of artillery and armored equipment is on display in the distance. And this is the 4th consecutive year for both militaries to hold drills of this kind. And it's the first joint drill held in China since the first COVID-19 outbreak in 2020. Both countries say the drills are meant to further demonstrate the two sides' resolve and capability, as well as their ability to fight terrorist forces and jointly safeguard regional peace and security. Lieutenant General Liu Xiaowu, Deputy Commander of the PLA Western Theater Command, said the exercise represents the new high level of China-Russia comprehensive strategic partnership of coordination. Roughly 10,000 Chinese and Russian troops are participating in the event. From today until August 13th, they will be mixed into teams and carry out training together. The drill will verify and improve both troops' capabilities in areas like joint reconnaissance and joint attacks and elimination. Zheng Yibing, CGTN, Qingtongxia.
Yibing also spoke to members of an armored assault team from China.
Rapid assaults, armored vehicles, and fierce firefights is all part of the training for these troops at this joint military exercise involving Chinese and Russian land forces.
Well, the soldiers are making their preparation and they're getting their combat vehicles in position to prepare for the upcoming exercises.
This new type of wheeled armored assault vehicle is getting a lot of attention at the drill site.
With tank guns, anti-aircraft machine guns, and various types of ammunition, it has a really powerful striking capability.
In a sign of cooperation, Russian troops at this exercise are learning how to drive Chinese armored vehicles.
To help the Russian teams quickly adapt to this new equipment, we did a lot of preparation, including learning plans and training aids.
As old friends participating in the International Army Games, both sides will closely coordinate in a drill and use dozens of weapons in potential combat scenarios.
This is a way to test the combined combat capabilities. The firepower of this drill has high intensity, as there could be more than 100 guns fired in a minute at the same time in the same place.
They hope the joint exercise will enhance the China-Russian alliance and combat capabilities for their two militaries. Zheng Yibing, CGTN, Qingtongxia.
And now to the latest on the coronavirus pandemic. And Tunisia is looking to speed up its COVID-19 vaccination drive. The government has opened up vaccinations to people over 40 and has set a target of vaccinating over half the population by October. As part of this effort, over 300 vaccination centers held an open day for people on a walk-in basis. The Health Ministry says over 500,000 received their vaccinations on Sunday. Tunisia has recorded more than 20,000 deaths since the start of the coronavirus pandemic.
The vaccinations will continue in the coming days until all the Tunisian people are vaccinated. We will continue the vaccination against all pandemics and a further vaccination against political pandemics, as well as political microbes.
The Egyptian Health Ministry says it will soon be launching a digital health passport. It's a mobile app that indicates the COVID-19 vaccination status of citizens. The tech solution aims to reduce crowding at vaccine certification centers where scores rush to get travel paper permits proving they've been vaccinated. Here's Adel Al-Makhroui with more.
4 months, Egyptians who wanted to travel abroad had to shuttle between vaccination centers, health and foreign ministry offices to be issued an internationally recognized COVID-19 vaccine certificate. This month, the government introduced an English replacement to the Arabic version of the COVID-19 vaccination certificate the government has been issuing.
Since we began this service on August 1st, there has been a huge influx of citizens. They need to go through a lot of procedures in order to get document authentications for travel. The paper has a QR code, watermark and UV ink to prevent forging.
Egyptian travelers showed up daily at one of 126 offices nationwide that offered the new certificate. Due to the huge demand, the government feared these centers could become a source of further viral infections. It's why the Health Ministry announced a new solution this week, a mobile app that will act as a digital health passport.
QR codes for vaccine status is now a global demand. It's like a passport which I need to leave airports and enter others to satisfy authorities that I am COVID safe. The app helps in having this certification on your phone. The app will be much better because it will help me avoid contact with people.
It's a great idea. It will make people's lives easier. Everyone has a phone, so no one will need to stand in lines here or move from one building to the other to get your travel documents ready.
The app adopts a traffic light alert system. It'll show green for fully vaccinated, yellow for receiving a single dose, and red for not vaccinated. Egypt's new health digital passport will record the brand of the vaccine and the dates on which the jab was administered. Health officials say the new mobile application will be used to access public places like theaters and sports events. The new technology also introduces what it calls promote mode, an option to identify all those vaccinated around you in the same location. Adel Al-Makhroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Chinese health authorities continue to battle a growing coronavirus outbreak. 94 new infections have been reported. The majority are in 2 provinces. Henan reported 41 new cases, while Jiangsu announced 38, all in the same city, Yangzhou. Hunan saw a dozen new cases and Hubei 3. China has over 1,600 active cases at the moment. Some of the regional outbreaks have been traced to the airports in Jiangsu's capital city, Nanjing, where several workers became infected last month. Henan's outbreak was traced to a hospital treating coronavirus patients in the city of Zhangzhou. Well, let's return now to Tunisia. President Kais Saied has warned that the country is facing an unprecedented water crisis. The president also said citizens should not be deprived of their right to access drinking water. Here's more from CGTN's Adnan Chouachi.
The head of state met with the CEO of the National Water Distribution Utility and the Director General of the Office of Planning and Water Balances. Kais Saied noted that it's vital for Tunisia to design a clear strategic plan to avoid water shortages.
I know very well that today Tunisians suffer from thirst, and even more than thirst. There are tragedies in some villages and sometimes in the cities. People don't even find water to wash the deceased. There's a water crisis in Tunisia, and we need to put in place a strategic plan for the future to ensure water availability.
Tunisia is listed among countries experiencing water stress. Experts explain this situation requires additional efforts to ration this resource, improve its management, and ensure equitable access to water.
Today, Tunisia is experiencing water scarcity or water poverty. The average water share of a citizen does not exceed 400 cubic meters per year. This is a very low level. This problem will get even worse in the next few years due to climate and global warming. That's why it's important to focus on water governance in Tunisia.
According to the Forum for Economic and Social Rights, FTDES, Tunisia's water code has never been amended since its creation in 1975. The legislation includes the protection of water resources and rights to water.
The 2014 constitution stipulates that access to water is a constitutional right. Tunisia needs new legislation and a new water code to guarantee this right, which has social and economic repercussions on people's livelihoods.
Environmental activists assert that the Tunisian state has failed to guarantee the constitutional right of access to water for all citizens. The North African state has witnessed a wave of protests demanding access to this vital resource. President Kais Saied declared that Tunisia needs to develop national and regional plans to cope with drought and scarcity of water resources. Saied also urged the Agriculture and Water Department to push for the sustainable use of water resources. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Time for your latest business news now with Penina Karibe.
Thank you, Lindy. Coming up on Africa Live Business. Nigeria's state oil company says its revenue grew by 17.73% in April. And we try out an app that could take Zimbabwe's cattle industry back to its glory days.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice. Africa Live. Find your voice.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation says its group operating revenue increased by 17.73% in April. The state oil company attributes the rise in trading surplus to the activities of the Nigerian Petroleum Development Company. They include crude oil lifting as well as increase in gas sales. An NNPC report also showed a 34.29% reduction in the number of pipeline points that have been vandalized. They stood at 46 in April. That's down from 90 vandalized pipeline points in the previous month. Zimbabwe was once a top beef exporter, but a foot-and-mouth outbreak in 2001 stopped sales abroad. The country has failed to restore lost markets because of the lack of livestock traceability. Now, all that is set to change following the launch of an app developed by eLivestock Global and backed by global financial giant MasterCard. Farai Mokotuya has the details.
It's dipping day at Alistair Banks's farm. After getting doused with chemicals, the cows are scanned using the eLivestock Global app that uploads the data onto a digital cloud powered by MasterCard's blockchain-based provenance solution.
We use an application that we've developed combined with electronic tags that are inserted in all the cattle, and that's inclusive of them coming to the dip at a time, at a place, provides us with quite a lot of traceability in terms of the animals being in the right place, receiving treatments that we can show and measure over time, and seeing those in an orderly manner. That allows us then to create a transparency into the business that we're running here. And that allows for people on the outside to view it through the cloud as if they were here on the farm.
The app will also help deal with long-running problems like cattle theft and illegal movement, amongst others. By recording key events such as when and how frequently cattle are dipped, this app can also help to mitigate a challenge that has emerged as a major threat to Zimbabwe's livestock, and that is tyleriosis, a tick-borne disease that has decimated herds across Zimbabwe.
Now the vet services, they've got all the information. They can even tell which animals are not being dipped, which household is not bringing their animals for dipping. Once all the animals are tagged and recorded on the system, they can then have those red flags, and they can now go and actually investigate why a certain village or a certain household is not dipping their animals.
Zimbabwe is the first country in the world to roll out the app, which is seen as a game changer for the continent.
In Africa mainly, we have a lot of cattle which are untraceable, and because of that, they can't be exported. And so you have millions of farmers and tens of millions of cattle that cannot enter global markets. Part of the conditions to enter global markets is traceability.
Traceable cattle can also be used as collateral, which means livestock that has already a huge ceremonial importance will see its commercial value significantly enhanced. Farai Makutuya, CGTN, Rua, Zimbabwe.
The price of liquefied petroleum gas, also known as cooking gas, has gone up significantly in several African countries. Kenya and Nigeria recently effected price increases for cooking gas, a move that may force users to turn to alternatives such as charcoal, kerosene and firewood amid high unemployment and poverty levels in the countries. Both gas sellers and users in Nigeria are also struggling, as CGTN's Deji Batmas finds out.
It's the peak period of sales at this gas plant, but there are no customers. The manager of the gas plant says sales has dropped drastically since the price of gas in the country was suddenly jacked up 3 weeks ago.
Presently, the price of gas is 454 naira per kg. So when you want to buy 12.5 kg now, that's about 5,700 approximately, and that's on the high side, because the complaints, the feedback we are getting from customers is not something to be happy about. But then what do? I use gas at home too, so I know how it feels. It hurts, my pocket hurts, So if my pocket should hurt, that of the customer too will also hurt.
Some customers like petty trader Oluwatosin Akinremi are still managing to put up with the hike in price, but she says she has had to make some drastic adjustments.
So I was using 12.5. I couldn't, because I cannot afford the price, so I have to go and buy this half of it, 6 kg. Now 6 kg is 3,000. So the thing is really affecting me, and there's no how you can do it without cooking.
Restaurant owner Yu Ugoya is still using gas for her cooking, but she says she's already planning to switch over to charcoal.
Let me try charcoal for 1 week. If I buy 1 bag of charcoal, then I will now compare it with gas. And I believe charcoal is even better now, not even need of daily. The gas is going up every day.
Some other local restaurant owners have since abandoned gas for firewood and not making any plans to make a U-turn.
The smoking disturbs me.
This smoke disturbs me a lot. It affects my eyes and my lungs. It also disturbs my neighbor. Sometimes they complain about the smoke, but I usually plead for their patience. I just cannot help it.
Apart from the issues of climate change, medical experts say the use of firewood also poses serious health hazard. And with the increasing price of gas, more people like Abba are likely to turn to firewood.
We do know, for example, that when you incinerate firewood and you burn it and use it as a cooking fuel, you tend to produce over 200 different chemicals. Prominent, of course, is carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, and a couple of other chemicals. The issues with these chemicals is that they are almost as pungent and as dangerous to health as the normal and the usual cigarette smoke we talk about.
Nigeria consumes an estimated 1 million metric tons of cooking gas annually. Even though the country is a major gas producer, it still imports about 65% of what it consumes, as local production of cooking gas is still very low. High cost of foreign exchange as a result of devaluation is mainly responsible for the hike in the price of gas. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos. Nigeria.
Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman J.Y. Lee, who's been in jail for bribery and other charges, now qualifies for parole. He's expected to leave prison as early as this Friday. Lee has spent 18 months behind bars for bribing a friend of the former President Park Geun-hye. He initially served 1 year of a 5-year sentence from August 2017, which was later suspended. That court decision was then overturned, and while his sentence was shortened, he was sent back to jail in January this year.
I am aware that the decision to grant Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman J.Y. Lee parole was the result of a comprehensive review of various factors, such as public sentiments and good behavior during detention. Especially, Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman J.Y. Lee is included in the subject of the parole in consideration of the country's economic situation and global economic circumstances amid the prolonged COVID-19 situation.
Silicon makers in Xinjiang producing parts for the solar panel industry have been bearing the brunt of U.S. sanctions. Industry players have to deal with challenges like higher raw material prices and tight supplies. Weilin Tang checks in with one of the world's largest polysilicon manufacturers to find out how the company is coping with the situation.
From cotton to solar panels. In June, the U.S. Department of Commerce added 5 companies in China's northwestern region of Xinjiang onto its entity list.
Xinjiang Daqo New Energy, where I am right now, is one of them. Analysts say the trickle-down effect on solar supply chains can be immense, given how the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region accounts for almost half of the world's polysilicon supply.
Xinjiang Daqo produces these chunks of polysilicon. It sells them in various sizes to wafer makers, which eventually find their way to solar panel players worldwide. From Daqo's end, though, it says its direct customers in the supply chain consist of only local Chinese players. So, how big of an impact is this U.S. blacklist having on the company?
In the short term, we will see little impact because the U.S. makes up less than 10% of our downstream clients' solar panel markets. Currently, overseas markets account for about 60% of our client sales. But if the U.S. partners with its allies like Europe, then it might have an impact on us.
The International Renewable Energy Agency says the world added about 127 gigawatts of solar capacity in 2020. Of this, only 12% was in the U.S. While Tao claims China's domestic power demand is more than enough to absorb this capacity shunned by the U.S., supply is tight.
A lot of our downstream wafer clients are unable to buy polysilicon now, whether it's from Xinjiang or other places. You're lucky if you're able to get hold of some.
Polysilicon prices have been rising. While still low compared to what prices were a decade ago, it's the increase seen in the past year that worries the industry. This has led to a surge in solar module costs that analysts say that's not seen in years, and this is causing delays to some major global solar panel projects.
Prices shouldn't rise too much from here. Prices may increase a little more in the short term, but they should come down by the second half of 2022. This is because there will be new capacity trickling in. Our current annual capacity of 70,000 tons of high-purity polysilicon will be bumped up to 105,000 by Q1 of next year. Other polysilicon manufacturers are also expanding their capacity. By next year, supply from Xinjiang alone should hit up to 300,000 tons.
Funds to expand capacity will partly come from Xinjiang Daqo's listing on the Shanghai Stock Exchange's Sci-Tech Innovation Board on July 22nd. The company has also set its sights on making semiconductor-grade polysilicon. Cao says the company has 1,000 tons of annual capacity in the pipeline, claiming its products have already reached the level required. Weilin Tang, CGTN, Shihezi City, Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region.
The Mexican government has taken aim at U.S. gun manufacturers, blaming them for much of the bloodshed south of the border. Alisdair Baverstock explains.
Mexico's suit was filed in a U.S. federal court in Boston, Massachusetts, against 11 major U.S. firearms manufacturers, citing negligent business practices leading to more than 500,000 guns a year being smuggled into Mexico.
We seek that the companies in the lawsuit provide compensation to Mexico for the damages caused by their negligent practices. We trust in the judicial standard that will litigate and win over the judge. And we are going to reduce illicit trafficking to those who promote trafficking in the United States.
That compensation sought amounts to at least $10 billion, according to Mexican officials. They estimate 70% of weapons trafficked to Mexico come from the US and are linked to 15,000 or more murders a year. While Mexico permits its citizens to legally own firearms, the process for obtaining one is long and arduous. Concealed carry permits are almost impossible to obtain, and the only gun store in the entire country is run by the Mexican military. However, the Mexican government has a tough case to build, according to José Francisco de Villa, a Mexican lawyer who has studied the issue.
As the litigant, Mexico has the burden of proof, and it will not be enough to cite government statistics or journalistic reports. Scientific proof for each of their arguments, which is very difficult to obtain, will be vital. Without those, Mexico will not have a case.
The US National Shooting Sports Foundation, an industry trade association, responded, calling the allegations baseless and stating that the Mexican government is responsible for the rampant crime and corruption within their own borders. That's something that Brian LeBaron, whose family members were murdered in Chihuahua State in 2019, agrees with.
It has been proven from bullet casing analysis that shots were fired by US-made firearms, but I can't blame the guns. I blame the people who pulled the triggers and the situation in Mexico that allows a sicario to kill without thinking, because 98% of murders go unsolved and unpunished in this country.
In a case that could last for many years, Mexico says it hopes to influence US firearms policy. Alistair Baverstock, CGTN, Mexico City.
And that's it for now from the business desk, but still to come on Global Business. A United Nations report warns that global warming is dangerously close to being out of control. We'll have more details on that story at the top of the hour. For now, I hand you back to Lindy.
Thanks, Penina. Well, let's take a short break. Your sports news up next. Coming up, ex-FIFA President Sepp Blatter appears in a Swiss court over a payment probe.
How would you create your legend? On the fields,